I made my first $1 million in my 20s, and I achieved financial independence in my 30s, with lessons from mentors, friends, countless books, and lots of trial and error. Thing is, I wasn't born into money. I don't have a fancy job on Wall Street. I'm just like you. I'm an everyday guy who learned all of my money lessons through the school of hard knocks, aka life. And today, I want to reveal for you my top money lessons and mistakes to avoid for anyone in their 20s or 30s looking to build serious wealth. Lesson 1. You're saving too much. This seems counterintuitive, but the money that you keep in the bank account is the worst place you can have it, all because of this boogeyman known as inflation. All inflation simply means is the cost of goods and services increase year over year. However, if your money does not increase at that same rate, you are in effect losing money. For example, today inflation is at around 2 to 3%. If you keep your money in a standard checking account, you get 0.01% of interest. So if the cost of goods and services go up by 2 to 3%, but your money only goes up by 0.1%, you in effect have less purchasing power, you in effect have less money. Too much money in the bank is also an easy invite to spend. At the end of the day, we are oftentimes our own worst enemy, and sometimes me included. If I see it, I spend it. And the best thing we could do is put up some barriers to that. And what I recommend is keep the minimum amount you need to survive in a checking account to cover bills, to cover one-off expenses. As an example, this is what my checking account currently looks like today. In addition to this, keep 3 to 6 months of emergency savings into a high-yield savings account. Once you have those things covered, then everything else you need to put to work in investments. And in a later section, I'm gonna show you exactly how to do that and what you should be buying. Lesson 2, the silent wealth killer, new cars. More than any other shiny new object, the most dangerous one to our financial health is a new car. And it's not simply the cost of the car, which by the way, 20 to 30% of its value, poof, gone the minute you drive it off the lot. No, the more sinister thing about new cars is the habit that they form. You get a new job that comes with a pay raise. You want to reward yourself. New car. You pay off your old car and you think, it's been 5 years, I should get a new car. And what ends up happening is this habit becomes a $700 a month financial anchor that drags on you for the rest of your life. And the saddest part about all of it is even if you know that this is bad, once you have upgraded to the brand new BMW, it's very difficult to later on voluntarily downgrade back to a used Hyundai because you fear what other people will think of you because you have inadvertently used the car to social signal your success. At the end of the day, America runs on the hedonic treadmill. You will upgrade your life. My advice though is stick to the college beater for as long as you can. Stick to certified pre-owned. Delay when you go and jump to the $150,000 brand new Rolls Royce. And that is gonna stretch your dollar so much further. Because if you fixate your success on material possessions, especially early in your career, that's a one-way ticket to living paycheck to paycheck. Lesson 3, wisely choose your friends. And be prepared to drop those who aren't growing with you. They say you are the average of the 5 people closest to you. Personally, I used to think that was kind of a BS woo-woo. Until in 2021, the 5 closest people to me encouraged me to start making posts on social media. Fast forward 5 years from that date, I've now grown an audience of well over 4 million, worked with some of the world's largest brands, and have made a lot of money along the way. And none of it would have been possible if it were not for that group challenging me and holding me accountable. In life, you can't choose your family or your early school age friends. But anything beyond the age of 18, that is entirely 100% your choice. And if you're serious about getting your money life in order and those around you are not, then it's time to make a tough decision. Because tough love, if your friends are a net negative or a detriment to your financial health, it might be time to cut the cord. It might be time to say no to going out for the 3rd time this week, or declining that Vegas trip that you're putting on a credit card and not making payments on. Because if you want to become financially independent, or start investing in real estate, or stop living paycheck to paycheck, or just create a better overall, better financial future for your children, you need to take a proactive approach to find people who share the same goals and values. For example, when we wanted to invest in real estate, none of our friends had any interest. So Viv and I proactively went to a real estate area meetup in Boston. We ended up meeting one of our closest friends now who introduced us to a real estate agent who we then ended up purchasing 3 multi-family duplexes in the Boston area. None of it possible if we didn't actually go out and search for those type of people. Lesson 4, write down and set money goals. Ben Franklin said it himself. If you fail to plan, then you will plan to fail. I spent a lot of days in high school and college daydreaming about getting rich. Literally just thinking about all the things I would buy. My dream car, an Audi A4 stock. The problem? Daydreaming doesn't make you rich. There's no path, there's no plan, it's just empty thoughts. And many of you are probably like me. You know you want it, but you haven't yet taken the initiative to write it down. And for me, it wasn't until after Viv moved to Boston that one year she made us sit down at the end of the year to do a joint couple goal planning session that I finally wrote down my money goals and how I was going to get there. And at the time, my goal was $10 million, and how I would get there is I would work my job at SAP, sell a bunch of software, and then buy a bunch of real estate, one property a year. Now, at the time, plan seemed very simple. But if you know anything about how real estate works and debt to income ratios, yeah, that's not a viable plan whatsoever. But the important thing was that for the first time, I actually had a goal and I had a plan. Now, plans can change, that's totally fine, just course correct. But you first need a course to make a correction. Lesson 5, avoid treating money topics like taboo. Let me ask you a question. Why did our parents want us to study hard? To get good grades. And why do they want us to get good grades? To go to a good school. And why do they want us to go to a good school? To get a good job. And why do they want us to get a good job? To make money? Bingo, to make money. And not just little money, but lots and lots of money. Yet, as a Western society, we've just decided that after the age of 18, money topics are just taboo. Yet everything we've ever been brought up and trained to do is to get us ready to go ahead and make a lot of money. My advice here is simple. Talk about money. The more you talk about it, the more you'll make. A rising tide lifts all ships. Just as an example, my very first job in tech sales, I was working at a company called Mendix. We were all hired as entry-level salespeople. Within about 3 months, we figured out all of the men were making more than the women. The only problem is we all had the exact same experience, the same work experience, the same school experience, the same lack of tech sales experience, yet the women were making on average $5,000 to $10,000 less. Didn't really make sense. And I'm glad we had the conversation because the women then went to HR and were like, hey, what's going on? And you know what HR did? They went, oops, my bad, and trued them up. I didn't lose any money, but my peers made more, all because of the fact that we talked about how much we were making. Another example, I helped a creator 5x his rates that he was charging brands on social media. Why? Because we were talking about money. Typically on TikTok, like short form content, if you have about 100,000 followers in the personal finance niche, you could expect to charge about $1,000 for a brand post. So if you have 500,000 followers, you could expect to charge 5,000. If you have 1 million, you expect to charge 10,000 and so on. We got into a conversation where I was telling him this because he was kind of new into the space. He reeled for me, wait a minute, I have like about 800,000 followers and I'm only charging 1,500. And I said, my friend, you need to up that significantly. And all of it happened because guess what? We were just open and willing to talk about money. That's it. I didn't want anything from him. I didn't need anything from him. I was just like, hey man, this is what it is. And he was like, wow, thanks. Net net. Money is not taboo. It should never be seen as taboo. It is essential to living. It's as essential as air or water. Because guess what? If you don't have money, you might not have clean air and you might not have clean water. I know it's a bit of a hyperbole, but it's true. It is really the fabric of what kind of makes things tick in the economy. And so we should openly and more freely talk about it. And on the topic of money and making more money, I've got an offer right now that could actually help you save some money / make some money, depending on how you want to see it. So there's a cashback platform that I use called Rakuten. Literally just gives you additional cashback for spending your money. Right now, if you're a new user, they will give you $50 once you spend $50. So if you're already going to be shopping at literally any of the thousands of retailers that they have, go ahead and sign up so that you get $50 right back and essentially think of it as a free $50. Now this isn't sponsoring anything, I just want to point this out because this is an elevated all-time high offer. Typically is spend 30, get 30. So don't sleep on it. If you're interested, I do have a referral link in the description box down below. Lesson 6, high leverage jobs. There are 3 types of jobs. The first type is never gonna make you rich. The second type, you'll eventually get there. And the third type, you'll get there fast. The first type of job is an hourly job. With this type of job, the amount of human capital put in is equal to the amount of economic output that you get out at a 1-to-1 ratio. Meaning, the more you work, the more you make. The less you work, the less you make, and this is in a linear fashion. The problem you quickly see is there's only so many hours in a day, and so you can only make so much, hence why growth is really slow. The second type of job, a salary job. And the input for human capital can be any number, however, the output that you get as economic capital is always gonna be gated at 1. As an example, you're a fresh college accountant. You are making $50,000 a year. You expect to work 40 hours a week, but when busy season comes around, you have to work 80 hours a week. Are you gonna get paid more? No, you're gonna get paid the same. So it doesn't really matter any excess human capital you put in, your economic output is still going to be gated. Third type of job, high leverage jobs. In this type of job, the human capital is a 1, but the economic output is X. It could be anything, there's a limitless upside. As an example, working in tech sales. These jobs are typically providing you a base as well as a commission, but the commission is uncapped. And so when I was working at SAP, I had an on-target earnings of $250,000 a year. I'd work 25 to 30 hours a week, but if I had a big deal come through, I could well easily blow past that $250,000 number and hit $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. In fact, I had a colleague, 29 years old. They had a $750,000 year. Were they working 1,000 hours a week? They might have had some time where they were working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, but I know for a fact working in tech sales, they had plenty of weeks where they were working 15, 20 hours a week. In high leverage jobs, the more you work, the more you make. However, it's not linear. It doesn't keep pace like this. In fact, it's very non-linear and it scales very quickly, especially if you can land some massive deals. It's really any commission-based jobs. So this could be you're selling financial products, you're selling real estate. And I know a lot of you thinking, sales isn't for me. And if you think that way, you're gonna wanna watch the next section. Lesson 7, sales. Growing up, I was a really shy kid. Think of a wallflower, that's kind of me. And so sales could not have been further from a career that I would have picked for myself. Yet my entire life now revolves around it. And what I realize now is life, it is just one big sell. You are selling every single day. We just don't like to call it sales because sales has an ick factor. But as an example, when you were first pursuing your girlfriend or boyfriend, you had to sell yourself as a viable partner. Went and interviewed for your first job. You had to sell to your employer that you were going to be a good worker. When you made the offer on your first home, you had to sell yourself to the seller that you were worthwhile as an offer because you're coming in at $10,000 lower than what they're asking for. I've sold multi-7-figure deals working my corporate career. I've sold multi-6-figure deals as a creator. What I've realized about sales now is at its core, it is consulting. It is problem solving. What is the issue the customer is having? What is the issue the brand is having? And what is my solution? And can I articulate that solution? That's it. Don't worry about this BS of walk in and sell me this pen. That's all just kind of manosphere BS. Sales at its core is consultative. And the faster you recognize that, the faster you can start honing your sales skills and the faster you are on the path to getting rich. Lesson 8. Have an investment plan. Everybody online tells you have to invest, but no one actually tells you what to invest in or how to do it. Well, thankfully, you made it to this part of the video. I'm gonna walk you through exactly how. And as just a disclaimer, this is not financial advice. And also, this is very broad. Of course, everyone's use case is going to be different, but generally, here's how I would approach it. If you don't currently today have a Roth IRA, go open one. If you have an employer-sponsored retirement account, 401k, 403b, make sure you get that full match. So something like dollar for 6%, get that full match. Make sure you have an HSA if you're eligible, which is a health savings account. And lastly, open a brokerage account. And my advice for brokerage accounts, people, do not get the flashy ones. The Robinhoods, the Weebles, they do nothing but take money from you because they make investing a game. Investing is not a game. It is so beyond boring. Have something like a Schwab, a Vanguard, or a Fidelity. The platforms where you're like, man, do I really want to go on and click some buttons? This thing looks like it's out of the 90s. That's a great feature. It's not a bug. Lean into that. For your Roth IRA, if you're in your 20s, you're early in your career, put that post-tax money in there ASAP. For the 401k, 403bs, get the employer match, but also make sure if you can, 10, 15, 20%, get it in there. It's going to knock down your current year tax liability. For your HSAs, if you can max it out every single year, more power to you, triple tax advantage, love that. In brokerage accounts, any excess money, remember the excess money we talked about earlier? Get it into a brokerage account, make your money work for you. Now as for what we are investing in. At the end of the day, nobody has a crystal ball. If anyone on here is selling you, hey man, I know the next hottest stock pick, that's a lie. My advice, index funds. low-cost, broad-based market index funds. I follow a simple 3-fund portfolio. It's known as the Boglehead approach. Basically, I have a total US ETF, a total international ETF, and some bonds, although really at this point, not a whole ton of bonds, like 1 or 2%. A total US ETF would be something like VTI. Some people like VOO if they just want the top 100. I'd rather take the entire stock market. For internationals, I look at only developed markets. I don't look at emergent. Quite frankly, even though I'm Chinese, I don't trust a lot of data coming out of China, and so I look at VEA. And for bonds, you could look at BND, or you could pick up municipal bonds from a tax advantage perspective. And what you want to do is have a plan to have regimented buys. We all want to time the market. I would love to buy low, sell high. What ends up happening for most people is you buy high and you sell low. Have your investment thesis and investment plan. When the stock market crashes 20%, look at your plan. If your plan's like, hey, you know, if this happens, great, we're going to continue buying, stick to the plan. Don't sell out. The number of people who sold out of the COVID crash and were like, oh, you know, like it'll keep crashing, and it never crashed and it just kind of ripped. Uh-oh. Have that plan, stick to the plan, regimented buys, dollar cost average. Now, that covers kind of stocks. Real estate. Me personally, love real estate. Multi-family house hack. I use an FHA loan, 3.5% down. I move into one unit, rent out the others, life is good. Obviously, this works in Boston. I don't know about other parts of the country, but I still believe real estate is probably one of the best ways for the common person to accelerate their wealth gain. I strongly recommend you take a look, whether it is buying your own property or you can look at something like a REIT or Fundrise. Cool, folks. This has been the video. Here are some of my top money lessons for anyone in their 20s or 30s who seriously want to build wealth heading into the new year. As always, comments, questions, drop it down below. A lot of this is really just my lived experience. I would love to hear if obviously people have other experiences that they'd like to share, and I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.